What's going on, everybody? TheKennyDubz here with another Mega Man X dive video. Now today we're going to be covering something I've been asked about quite frequently. It's going to be characters that are good for raids. Unfortunately, for those people that have asked, this won't be a tier list video. This would be more akin to how I did the weapons for PvP as opposed to an actual tier list video. So let's jump into the character screen first. All right, so real quick before I get too far into this, just kind of like generic things that I'm gonna go over. Characters that can deal high burst damage, have some survivability, or can stack crit, just really amplify their own damage, are going to be very, very good for raids. Now, in going over the characters that I'm going to, list out here, they're not going to be in any particular order. Really, they're just going to be characters that are good for raids, and basically just kind of as I see them on the list, on the character list here. And with that said, we're going to start off with White Day Cinnamon. We're starting with White Day Cinnamon because I don't own her. I have the memories for her, and she's at the top of my list right now. I should unlock her, though, because I don't see myself pulling on a band of her, but that's neither here nor there. So, White Day Cinnamon is one of the units that is pretty good for raids because she actually has Defense Crush right here, inherently in her kit. She also has crit damage stacking here. And she also has crit rate stacking, and even more crit rate stacking with this here. So she can amplify her critical hit damage and amplify her crit rate. So you'll deal more damage, per hit. And I don't know if she has anything else in here. But you can also semi-skill spam with generosity. Here you have a shield as well, so you have good survivability there. And that's all well and good. Another unit that is good for raids we're going to talk about is Ferham. Now, many of you know Ferham because she's one of the OGs that's been good for raid. And I think she'll continue to be good for raids for quite some time here. So, Ferham, those of you that don't know, is it on here? No, I think it's in her passive. Yes, she has Blood Frenzy here. When you use Blood Snake, you can increase your crit and crit rate by 112%. So the instant you use Blood Snake, which is the skill right here, you just have a lot higher chance to crit and you deal more damage. On top of that, you have this passive here, Sadistic. Being hit, there's a chance to enhance crit damage, increased by 192%, which is very, very good there. And Quality of the Queen, when your HP is above 50%, you increase your damage by 10%, which is good. And in her DNA, actually, I think you get more crit. Okay, maybe not more crit. But something that's decent against raid bosses, not really decent against raid bosses, but raid bosses simply have ads, then you get the healing from HP absorb. And that's actually pretty relevant, contrary to what you might initially think versus a raid boss, because raid bosses typically spawn ads, and in spawning ads, that allows you to keep up your Quality of the Queen more easily if you're not using a weapon that has inherent healing like a Sinister Shadow Saber. Speaking of that, I think I might have missed. Okay, Cinnamon does have her DNA here. I don't think she has anything directly that's good for that. Okay, no, she doesn't have anything that's directly good for that there. Following that, we're going to talk about White Day Axe a little bit, and I think White Day Axe might be a bit of a sleeper for those of you for some players that just might kind of write him off just because I've seen a lot of people just say he's bad for some reason, and I don't know why they think he's bad. But White Day Axel does have access to crit stacking as well here. He also has pretty decent damage on his attacks. So that's pretty nice there. And if we go to... so you have damage amplification here, 15%. Here it is. It's actually in his DNA, not in his regular kit. When you use a skill, you gain enhanced crit and increase your crit rate by 24%, can stack up to 5 times. So that's really, really good for damage, as you would expect. And he has some other things as well, which is pretty good here. He has this gorgeous performance here, allows you to use Pedal Twister repeatedly after it is triggered. It also reduces the prep time for Pedal Twister as well. So you combine Pedal Twister here, which deals quite a bit of damage to all targets in range. use that continuously. So use this twice. That's 2 stacks immediately of your Fire Passion. So that's good there. I'm not going to go over DNA too much because there's a lot of different things you can go into with that. Following that, we're going to talk about Rathalos Armor X as well. I think Rathalos Armor X is still pretty decent for raids. There's definitely a lot better units you can use nowadays. But Rathalos Armor X, one of the places where he shines is in raids here. So Rathalos Armor X has a fat attack here. It deals 2 hits with this. And when you use this, you have this here that doubles the damage rate of the second hit, and you have destroy armor as well. So when you're using that skill, you get a fat defense crush, 32%. That's really good. You also have this right here, stacks damage with you there, so you get more damage on top of that. You have weapons expert, 30% damage amp for having a buster and a melee weapon, so that's even more damage. Then you have Inferno as well, which allows you to deal more damage with Rathalos Fire Breath. I don't know why that inherently doesn't have dot damage, but it does. And then there's also a chance for you to gain enhanced damage as well when using this. And I don't remember if he has anything particular in his DNA for this. Oh, yeah, you have King of Destruction as well, which increases your damage even more when you're attacking something with Defense Crush. So that's very, very good there as well. And Super Base. Super Base is still kind of a jack-of-all-trades unit. Very, very good burst damage healer, which is something that I don't think I really touched on. But burst damage is very, very nice to have, especially in raid bosses, because you can rack up your damage very, very quickly in that regard. And speaking of burst damage, Super Base has the base buster. You know, it deals 200% attack damage, which doesn't seem like all that much on the surface, but then you get 3 shots at a time here. So then that 200 becomes 600, on top of being able to inflict defense crush as well. And then on top of that, you have Evil Energy, which allows you to just kind of spam it out. So every 8 seconds, you get to just use you get to use each skill twice. So now that 600% attack becomes 1200, assuming you hit all 3 shots, which is huge. That is fantastic, especially for raid bosses. You also get the Sweeping Laser as well. So you get a little bit of damage with that, you get to spam this, and then you get a defense crush on this, which allows you to stack even more defense crush. Following that, you have your Buster Mastery as well. Super Base also has a bit of longevity as well, as he has access to Buster Adaptability, which is 20% less damage taken with the Buster, which you're gonna be wanting to use him as a Buster anyway, and a little bit of longevity here with energy feedback, so that when you beat enemies during a raid boss, you can get some HP back. Now, this is only going to apply to the mob enemies, but it's still something worth noting. Next up, we have Akuma, and yeah, I mean, he's Akuma. That's basically it. So Akuma has the Sekia Kuretsuha, which allows him to reduce the damage you take by inflicting a weakened attack crush, which is quite nice there. He also has the Shingoku Satsu, which doesn't tell you how much damage it deals here, but it deals a decent amount of damage. And on top of that, it actually also has access to the oops, not that one. Oh no, yeah, this one. Boss Killer Chip as well, so that amplifies your damage even further versus bosses. And then he has the Satsui no Hado, which allows you to stack attack every 6 seconds. You gain a 4.25% attack boost, which again is very, very nice there. And then you get access to the dot damage with your Total Annihilation, which again is very, very good. You have your Shin, gets you 3 more stacks of Satsui no Hado and reduces the prep time by 30%, again amplifying the damage you deal even more. Akuma also has energy feedback, which again is, I think it's worth noting for raid bosses, but it's not something that like, this shouldn't be the reason why you jump to Akuma or any character for taking on raid bosses. Next up is RiCO. And I know a lot of people probably don't think of RiCO when it comes to potentially dealing a lot of damage versus raid bosses, and probably for decent reasons. Now, I'm going to say for decent reasoning because RiCO is RNG based, a lot more RNG based than other units that I've mentioned up till now. And that's because RiCO has the potential to deal a metric butt ton of damage to raid bosses but she also has potential to not deal of damage to raid walls. So then let me explain. So her data recreation, it has the option of pulling 3 different skills. Now it can pull the snare from I think it's X or X4 Sigma, which if you pull snare, you're dealing no damage to to the raid boss, whatever. It doesn't do anything. You also have the cubes and base GS's shooting claws. Now if you were to get anything other than snare, right, obviously you'll be doing a lot of damage, and because you can have 4 of the data recreation windows open at the same time, that's potential for a lot of damage there. However, RiCO is based on RNG, so I can see why people wouldn't think to use her or even really want to use her all that much, but she does have potential for a lot of damage. She also has her analyzer wall, which moves with you so that you can go ahead and just kind of deal damage while making contact with the boss. And then with her 4th passive, this one, yeah, the data wall also shoots out little dots of damage every once in a while, so that it deals even more damage on top of that. There's a strategy for the unknown to help deal with that, and she has a shield as well. Yeah, as a shield to give her a little bit of longevity, so that helps with her as well for raid bosses if you're having a little bit of trouble surviving. Other than that, I don't think she had anything else. All right, up next we have Via, and I'd probably say Via is within like the top 3 in global right now for using for raid bosses. Via is just a fantastic unit. He's one of those units that's all around good, kind of like super base, but not like not really in the same way as super base, because Via does have a lot of damage caked into him with the Via sword style Blue Kai. He also has the technique Swift here as well, and this is actually pretty good versus raid bosses just because the range is reduced by 25%, but it doesn't matter all that much in versus a raid boss because you'll be pretty close quarters with them anyway. This is Battle Mania, which is an stacking attack buff, melee mastery, more damage when using melee weapon. He has Art of the Sword, which deals more damage when you're jumping in the air, jump slash with a melee weapon. He also has access to Defense Crush, doubling the launch rate of Battle Mania, and I think it's like a 20%, 20 to 30% inherently. So Sword Apparition is really good for that there. Sword Maestro as well, which is quite nice. That gives you a shield, which is good for longevity. And then Via also is one of the units that has energy feedback, which is good to make note of. Again, this is just decent to have for raid bosses, as it helps you survive a little bit when they summon adds, but it's not something that you should worry about using or worry about entirely when picking a unit for raids. Enhanced Melee Mastery increases the effect by 20%, so you go to 24%, which is good. And then Sword Maestro as well, which just gives you some mitigation, again, more longevity versus raid bosses. And next up, what I think is probably the best raid unit to use right now in the global version of the game, Celebration RiCO. And a lot of people don't actually like Celebration RiCO or RiCO Celebration just because they don't like RiCO, but she's one of, if not the best unit to use for raids, for a multitude of reasons. You have some nice things here, like her moves deal quite a bit of damage as well. Like this just raw does 333, or yeah, about 333% attack damage there. You can even kind of combo it with it, or chain it together, rather, I guess I should say, based on her mechanic. You can do that. You get access to enhanced damage status, which gives you 70% extra damage there. And then you have some damage mitigation as well, which is very nice. She has some healing as well, which is good for longevity. And right here is one of the big things, again, for using a unit for raid. Enhanced crit enhances your crit rate, stacks it to 4 times, which is very good there. And then in her DNA, she has access to gaining enhanced crit damage here. So you deal more crit, you have a higher chance to crit, and then you deal more damage with crit, which is very good. And then she has a defense crush as well available in her DNA, which again, that just increases the damage you do in general. So that's very good to have there. Okay, I just jumped over to my Taiwan account because there's a few more characters I do want to put onto here, but they're not out in the global version just yet. However, did want to list them so that people are aware of their existence and maybe want to invest into them for raids as well. First up, Dive Armor Zero. It shouldn't really be a surprise, as Dive Armor Zero is one of the game-changing units in terms of PvP. And it's kind of in general. He's really good for PvP, but he's also pretty good in raids as well, as you can build him for raids here. He just has so much potential damage. Like, he has a lot of damage with this. You have restriction off with that. He has a bunch of damage with his with this skill right here. Again, restriction off allows you to spam skills. The reason I'm not saying these names is because I don't think I can pronounce it properly. So that's why I'm just like not trying to pronounce the names of these skills. So S1, S2, really good there. Other than that, you also have access to some mitigation here with this skill. You have additional damage here with this skill as well, alongside a damage enhancement, which is very good. Melee mastery. You also have access to auto repair, which is interesting. It's not the same auto repair that we have as a DNA skill, but you know what? It's nice to have. And then once he gets his DNA, he gets access to energy feedback. Again, just something nice to have. Don't necessarily need it for raid units. Enhanced melee mastery enhances it to 24, which is nice. And then you have Nitoryu, which which you use two melee weapons at the same time, reach them by 30%. Hey, you know what? For raids, that's pretty good. Also want to throw Shaggy X in here as well. Shaggy X is a pretty good unit, all things considered. His skill 1, Lecry, deals damage and then increases damage dealt as he gains a enhanced damage status, alongside his frenzy slot, which deals even more damage, which is very nice there. And then we have La Calamity, which is very good. Now this is one of the skills that that you use that has multiple charges, and this one right here allows you to get another charge of that. You could also go with oh wait, no, this one. I think this gives you 2 charges of it. I don't remember if you start with 2 or 3. I think this gives you 2. It's been a while since I used Shaggy X, or Shagaru Armor X. I keep calling him Shaggy X because Monster Hunter community calls him Shaggy. But alongside that, we have the Frenzy Virus, which defense crush, which is fantastic there. Frenzy Blast Wave allows you to deal even more damage and damage mitigation, so that's good. Frenzy gets you even more damage done there, and this gets you the shield here, so that is nice to have there. A little bit of longevity with Shaggy X. Following that, we have Gore RiCO. I've been trying to say her name right because I'm pretty sure it's RiCO, but my first thought is to say Eco because RiCO. So I usually say Eco because of that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But Gore RiCO is another very strong unit. So you fire 3 rounds of friendly shots with this. So despite it saying 134%, if all 3 hit, this is a lot more than 134%. As you would expect. You get tracking here, which is quite nice with that. And over here you get Jealous Hug, which deals a fat amount of damage. Not only does this deal a fat amount of damage, why is it? You get restriction off on it. So that means every 7 seconds, you can just kind of use this twice, so that 300% attack damage becomes 600% attack damage, which is very good. Frenzy Might, which increases damage you deal, decreases damage you take. Frenzy Virus, Defense Crush, again, very nice there. Enhanced Black Venom actually gives you quite a few things, but the things that are relevant for Raid Boss is going to be the Enhanced Defense State and the Shield. And then you have Jealous Hug Chaos, and that will cause a dot damage effect, which is very nice to have, and deals more damage when you hit down someone in a dot, so that's very good there. Gangsta Eratoeir is a decent one as well, I think. For this, she comes at the same time as Gangsta Boy Sigma. She's someone you can use for raids as well. Modifier chips for this skill aren't really all that great for raids. You can use this the Showtime one, but for her skill 2, you can either use Showtime or you can use Enhanced Wrath, which gives you an enhanced damage state, which is very, very nice. On top of that, you have healing on top on this. You have a defense crush here, increases damage by 48%, which is very, very nice. She has access to even more damage amp with her DNA, which doesn't come out much later, but kind of like Shagaru Armor X, you need to target and crit defense reduction damage. Dire status increased damage by 20%, which is very, very nice there. You gain a shield, which is good for survivability, and then, you know, more survivability there. Gangsta Boy Sigma might still be the best unit for raids, the Taiwan version. He's very, very good for raids. Like, he's just good in general, but he has a lot of things going for him. So if you're into raids, you definitely want Gangsta Boy Sigma. First up, you can see his skill 1 dual limitation does 360% attack damage, and well, it's pretty nice. There's also a lot more caked into this skill, but yeah, it does a lot of damage. And then short range boost, damage increase for attacks when hitting a target in short range. If you're fighting a raid boss, probably going to be in short range a lot of time, or have able to be in short range. Next up, we have lethal combo dash skill. Quite nice, at least it's a shockwave as well. I don't think this has anything in particular. Oh, you get a shield, so that's good for survivability. Over here, it's pretty interesting because you have damage amp when your HP is lowered, so that can potentially be very, very useful. You don't really want to be, while you do want to be below 25% HP, you don't want to die, so it's good that he has some survivability in his kit, which is very, very nice. There's a preventive shield, which can be useful. It's not the, you know, it's not like a make or break thing, but it's very, very nice. Melee proficiency, damage amp, damage mid, always fantastic there. Fist to fist, when you attack a target, there's an enhanced chance to gain enhanced crit and increased crit rate by 30%. And then when being hit, there's a chance to gain more crit damage by 25%, stackable by 4 levels. And this right here is fantastic for raid bosses, because when you are hitting a target, you get a chance to increase your crit rate. And then when you're getting hit, you get a chance to increase your crit damage. And then while you're getting hit and your HP is getting lower, you're dealing more damage. So there's that. And then once you drop below 25% HP, this passive right here gets you a fat shield that lasts quite a while, which is very, very nice because that's more longevity for you there. And then I think that oh, this has damage mid, so that's not bad. And then for his DNA, another one with energy feedback. Again, nice to have, not that big of a deal. You don't care about this in raid bosses, and that's okay as well. After that, we have Shagaru Armor X, a unit I really, really like. Unfortunately, I don't own him. However, I think he's really good for raids for multiple reasons here. First up, Giga Attack. Giga Attack is fantastic. His Giga Attack is kind of, it's not really a damage over time kind of skill per se, but it's one of those where if you're within range of him while he's surrounding himself with his Giga Attack from X6, which if you don't know about it, I'll see if I can find a clip of it maybe, just so you have an idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's very, very nice to have there. You also get access to a shield, which is very, very nice because longevity. And then his charge shot is not a charge shot. It's actually just a raw shot, which is interesting. You fire 3 rounds of terrain ignoring shuriken, and I think you get 3 charges of this if I remember correctly. And if you see here, it deals 91% attack damage. Well, it's not 91% if you hit all 3 on a single target, and after you hit a target, you hit them with defense crush, a 45% defense crush, which is very, very nice. It doesn't stack, unfortunately, with this, but 45% defense crush, that's pretty strong. I don't think any of these, yeah, none of those really matter for raid bosses. However, armor protection, that's really nice. Ingitsurin allows you to deal more damage when you're using melee attacks, which is very, very nice here. because you have access to 20% melee damage, and you also get a like a little projectile based thing when you have a melee weapon equipped. So you can use a melee weapon. This is also very interesting. Now, this isn't like direct mitigation in the form of a shield, but this increases your dodge. So if you're fighting a raid boss, there's a potential for you to get hit and take no damage. I'm not sure what raid boss's hit chances are, if they're going to be offset by this by the time Shadow Armor comes out, but that's decent. This is just good because you hit a target with Shadow Shot, you gain more armor energy and increases your natural armor energy recovery speed. So hitting your skills, getting hit just means you charge this even faster, which is, again, that's great because this is what allows you to get your defense crush off, and then you deal fat damage with this. And then Shadow Erosion doesn't do anything. As far as DNA, I don't think his DNA typically really does anything. Melee adaptability, okay, so that's nice. Energy absorb modified. Effective energy absorb increased by 700%. Sure. That doesn't tell me anything in particular, but there's that. But this is actually interesting because his DNA allows you to deal more damage, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, what do I get crit reduction? Well, you get it from Shadow Erosion, so that's nice to have there. All right, and before we get to round 2, wrapping this up, I did want to mention just kind of a few units here that I think are worth honorable mentions, just because if you don't really have anything better, I think you can use them, but there's better options. Volnut Alt, he actually fulfills a few of the things that you would think might make him a good raider. The first one is that he is a little bit mischievous and kicks over that vending machine, but what he actually has is stacking crit. You can increase your crit rate with this skill there. I don't think actually you also got healing with that. Oh, prank, you get enhanced crit here. You might think that he's really good for raids, but he's okay. Like, if you don't have anything better, well, you can use Volnut Alt realistically. But yeah, Volnut Alt I think is one. I'm not too keen on Zero Nightmare for raids, but I think it's worth mentioning him as well because he can have high damage potential. Again, I think he's one of those units where if you don't have something better, you can use Zero Nightmare. And keep in mind, when I'm for this section in particular, I'm talking about overall. So like assuming like Taiwan side with with all these units released. So it'll be a little bit different here for like if like in global right now, I think Zero Nightmare is probably one of the better units for raids. But current state, I don't think he's he would be as good. Zero Nightmare is a decent one as well. I don't think he has restriction off or anything. He has restriction off for Genmu Kai, which is interesting. Buster Mastery, Melee Mastery. So then obviously, you want to use those for that. And I think he also has Woman's Expert as well. Oh, never mind. That's not what I thought it was. Okay. But yeah, mitigation is really good. I thought that was the 30% amp for having a Buster Melee equipped. But yeah, I think he's okay. Not really much else to say about Zero Nightmare. Beige Cross Mega Man, I think it's worth a decent mention as well. I do really like this unit, but I think for the most part he's just kind of like a worse version of Super Base, so to speak. Jack of all trades, master of none, but like worse. He does have decent damage output potential, which is quite nice, especially for raid bosses. Here you have access to like your Hell's Rolling if you need. You have your supercharged shot, and then you have your Vanishing World Kai, which deals a whole lot of damage, and then you can do even more damage with Concentrated Explosion. On top of that, you have where is it? Is it Lethal Resonance? One of these allows you to inflict defense crush, and I don't remember which one it is. Here it is. To eventually roll Kai, fat defense crush, but it takes so long to come off cooldown. Like, it's a 10-second cooldown basically. With all the passives. So there is that. But you get a shield, which is quite nice. You get damage amp here, damage emit there, more damage amp here, and then with this DNA, which we don't have in global yet, but maximum charge shot also has the ability to, or your charge shot has the ability to inflict destroy armor, which is quite nice. Busted proficiency, again, something that's quite nice. And then here you can reduce the prep time of vanishing roll, which is nice for damage output in general. And then finally, I want to mention Dive Armor X. To be honest, I don't think Dive Armor X is that great versus raid bosses. What Dive Armor X allows you to have versus a raid boss is survivability. That is his big benefit. If you're, for some reason, you're having trouble staying alive versus a raid boss, Dive Armor X can probably remedy that for you, just because he is such a balanced unit when it comes to survivability. You have your Nova Aura as your shield. You can get increased healing on that when you use a Nova Aura as well, on top of the mitigation that he provides from the armor protection and his DNA, the busted adaptability, so that's minus 30%. So yeah, it's just like you're not using him because he's good for raids. You're using him because you're struggling to stay alive during raids. All right, one last thing I kind of wanted to touch on before ending off this video is a few DNA choices that you can use to help you potentially make your raid units stronger, because your DNA is going to go a long way in making your raid unit stronger. So one of the first ones I want to mention is First Armor X. First Armor X random DNA actually has quite a few good things in here for you. One of the main ones is auto repair. When you're hit, you regain HP equal to 6% of your attack, which is quite nice. On top of that, he has access to Boss Killer and Boss Sentinel, so you can make either more damage or a bit more tankier depending on what you want, depending on what your character already has inherently or your cards are covered. Second Armor X, again, he has Boss Killer, Boss Sentinel, so those are nice to have. You also have access to Boss Adaptability as well if you want to use that instead. A few others here as well that are pretty easy to get. Zero, my Zero here, you see I have Boss Killer 3, Boss Killer 2, Boss Killer 1. Those are all nice to have there. You also have access to melee amplification as well if you would like to go grab some of that. And I actually already have my Zero built for doing some raiding stuff, so that's why it's a lot easier for me to show that. Ale also has decent DNA for this as well. Just show Ale there. Ale has Boss Sentinel, Boss Killer, some things, that's just good to have. And the reason I want to show a few of these is because they're A rank units, so they're really easy to get their memories. You can either make them in the lab, or you can get them in the daily from the token shop, which is quite nice there. Mega Man Walnut has access to Buster Adaptability, double adaptability if using a Buster machine gun, which is actually relevant now because we have good machine guns to use versus raid bosses, so that's actually pretty good. He also has Boss Sentinel. He doesn't have anything offensive, but that's pretty good there. And then we have Thunderbeam Mega Man, which is worth noting because he's another unit that has auto repair, and auto repair actually pairs well with units like Rathalos Armor X. You could really put it with anyone, but Rathalos Armor X is really good on. Has Buster Adaptability, Buster Amplification, Boss Sentinel, again, things that are really nice to have. And because I mentioned Thunderbeam Mega Man, classic Mega Man is in the same kind of boat. Auto Repair, Boss Sentinel, Boss Killer, very, very nice there. I believe Axel as well has some nice things. Yeah, Axel's double adaptability, Sprayer, Machine Gun, Boss Sentinel, Boss Killer. I actually already have Boss Sentinel here. I think I wanted to go for Boss Killer on this. But yeah, that's something else that you can do there. All right, I guess that's going to wrap it up for now. Now for the DNA portion, there's a lot more units you can use, but I just kind of went over a few of them just because I knew they were a bit easier to own or easier to get for players. And overall, this is something I've been asked to do for quite some time, but just making a tier list for this is... All right, that's gonna wrap up the video. Just the end there, I just kind of wanted to, just put in some units that might have some interesting DNA that's pretty good for raids there. But yeah, that's basically it for the units that that are pretty solid for raids. Now, it is important to keep in mind that depending on the raid boss and depending on your raid boss bonus, you can probably get away with some other things. For example, the most recent raid boss of the global version I had prior to me uploading this video, it was Hell Sigma, right? And Hell Sigma legitimately doesn't move. So you can use someone like Magma Dragoon or even like Absolute Zero and do okay versus them, right? Because they legitimately don't move, they legitimately sit on the floor. You can use like any character versus them and do very, very well. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Depending on the boss, you can get away with using other characters, like the ones that don't teleport a lot. Those are typically easier to deal with. And something else that's that you have to take into account as well is what your raid bonus is, right? Because if you're using say Super Base with no investment, and your raid bonus is like, say, I don't know, 20-25%, your score is going to be a lot lower than someone who has the same Super Base with like no investment, but they have like 150% raid bonus, right? Like that's just something you're going to have to keep in mind as well when making a raid units alongside the DNA that they have as well, because some units have some DNA that might make you think they're good for raids, kind of like Proto Man EXE. I don't think it's particularly bad for raids, but I don't think he's particularly good for them either, right? Like he has Official Nut Battler, targets a boss character, increase damage deal by 6%, when attacked by boss, decrease damage deal by 6%. So, like in theory, like that sounds, it's like, oh, that's pretty good. I can use him for raids. I mean, you can, but he's not, one of the better units to use for raids, right? So, despite him having, a pretty high damage output with his Sonic Boom and Step Sword in PvP, he's not as good in raids as he is in PvP. So I just wanted to put that in here at the end because I know I forgot to say that at the start of the video. But hopefully, for those of you that are interested in seeing this video, seeing about raid bosses, hopefully this video helped you out. I know, like I said, I know this wasn't what you were expecting, because I know a lot of people were like, hey, Kenny, do a raid tier list. Hey, do a raid tier list. I was like, well, I don't really like doing tier lists all that much, to be honest, especially if it's not sort of something that's directly competitive. Because, like I said, you can get away with using, depending on the raid boss, almost any units. But you also have to take into account how high your raid bonus is, because that will also balloon your score a lot higher or a lot lower. Don't know. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll channel to show me that you enjoyed the content. Let me know what else you guys want to see. This was just the thing that I've been requested for the most recently, so I figured I would get this out. And I want to throw a quick shout out to my YouTube channel members and my patrons for continuing to support me, allow me to do what I do. If you'd like to support me as a YouTube channel member or as a patron, you can find how to do that down below the video in the description. And I'll catch you guys next time. Later.